The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. We just want to give everyone a few more minutes to hop on. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will get started at no later than 10:18.
11:18. Depends
11:18. I'm in Texas.
depends what time zone you're in. It could be 8:15. Depend what time zone.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone so much for joining us for our next managers webinar. We wanted to go ahead and welcome you all and for those of y'all that are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Bethany, Senior Operations Manager for Hand and Stone.
And I'm Melissa, Senior Operations Manager. We are so excited to introduce you to our next topic, training the trainer, developing department leads. Alrighty, so we wanted to take a moment to thank all of you for your feedback and emails. We heard so much from all of you, and it really helped shape our webinar for today. So keep sending that. We appreciate it.
Yes, I feel like we hear more and more on each topic, and this is without a doubt our favorite part of this entire process. So keep the emails coming. One of the most common challenges that we heard from you is what to do in the absence of a lead. Which is no surprise to Melissa and I, because as y'all know, we've been there. So today's presentation is going to speak to identifying and developing leaders in their various forms and how to handle the absence of a lead.
Right, and we're all familiar with the different pieces of a leadership team in the spa. When you have a lead spa associate, a lead esthetician, and a lead massage therapist. And these don't always take the same shape in each spa. We really wanted to highlight today how different these positions can look and how important it is not to box yourself in to that idea of what it should be.
Yes, I am. And Melissa, I'm really glad that you said that too, because I don't know about you, but at least for me and for what I've seen in the field, most often as managers, we're more comfortable with the lead spa associate piece of the puzzle because we know more ourselves about this particular position. I mean, let's be honest, most of us, with the exception of a few, haven't gone to school as therapists or estheticians, and that may not necessarily be in our plan. So we need to know how to speak confidently to this side of the business without having that knowledge.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So we broke down today's webinar into sections. So we'll focus on developing a leader in each department. And even better, we have some really great stories lined up for the managers in the field to share some tips for success in more unique scenarios. And guys, we are talking stories across the country. I think we cover every time zone in our guest speakers today. So really relatable all across the country. These managers will tell us about their favorite tools, best practices, accountability approaches, and really the partnerships and tips and tricks that they have with their leadership teams in their spa.
Yes, so excited. All right, so there's 3 different phases to developing a lead. The first 2 are identifying and defining your talent. So, of course, first you need to find one, right? So with each department, you want to start by identifying the right talent on your team. Look for that talent and drive that Melissa and I have discussed in so many prior webinars to determine if someone is going to be the right fit. If you don't have someone on your team, like Melissa was just saying, don't box yourself in. Don't restrict yourself to only searching within the business. You're looking for someone who is reliable, dependable, and most importantly, on board with the hand and stone process. So surprisingly, this does not need to be your top seller. There is a difference between doing and teaching, and you can have a team member who's average with sales but follows the hand and stone way and has all of those qualities you're looking for and will be a better teacher or a lead than a star salesperson.
Bethany, isn't there a saying, and that goes kind of hand in hand to what you just said, those who can do and those who can't teach?
Yeah. And for those of y'all laughing out there, we know we're teachers, but that doesn't mean we didn't do this first. So
right.
The biggest tip that we can probably give you from having done this ourselves is to take your time and do not hire out of desperation. And this is one of the tips from one of our guest speakers too, just as a little precursor. So get ready.
Yeah, and once you have found the right fit, whether they have past experience or not, don't assume they know how to be a coach or a leader as you need them to be. Just giving them the title does not mean they know how to do this. You have to lay out your expectations very clearly, be transparent about your mission and your goals. We can't just go and tell them we want a minimum $90 aesthetics ticket or 25% stone services. And have them figure it out. It has to be a partnership approach no matter what their background is.
Yes. And that's part of the 3rd phase of developing a lead is that ongoing development and coaching. Like Melissa was saying, this is your partner in crime. This is your co-captain. You're the peanut butter to your jelly. This is not someone to just take tasks off your plate.
And for all of you that have been following us from day one, that was a joke from our day one webinar. But truly, you guys, you're in this together. To make a department succeed, you have to work with them to accomplish them. Truly explaining from them in a coaching capacity. This may mean weekly meetings, monthly evaluations, regular on-the-spot coaching, and role-playing. It may be a training workshop.
Right. You need to take the time to use these tools and educate them. You need to educate them on the tools that they have at their disposal for the growth of their team and their own growth too. They're going to learn and grow throughout their time as a lead. And too often we focus on what we want them to do right out the gate rather than what kind of coaching and growth they're going to receive as well. Remember, and Melissa and I have to remind ourselves of this all the time, to remember that we all started off as leaders once too, and it's a learning process, and you need to show them what you are instructing them to do if you ever expect them to really get it. There's another quote out there. We're just on fire with our quotes today, but it really applies. It's tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn.
Honestly, Bethany, truer words have never been spoken about the teaching process.
Yes.
Everyone should really live by that quote. It's fantastic. And we can't stress it enough. Don't just tell them what to do. You have to show them how. Continue to follow up with them throughout coaching. Like we discussed in our last webinar, training will always be ongoing. Don't set them loose and assume they'll be good to go after a few weeks. Take the time to regularly meet with them, talk through their plan and coach them, and work on developing their approach, and they'll really value this time.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with the basics of aesthetics and talk about our aesthetics leaders. So our database is constantly growing, which is fantastic, but it definitely provides a challenge as a manager to make sure you're always on top of what tools are available to yourself and your aesthetics leader. So we wanted to take the opportunity to remind you of the tools for each department during this webinar.
And this really speaks to the black and white piece of the puzzle of supporting and developing our leads. Our guest speakers today will speak more to the gray area and the total opposite of manuals and documents.
Right. And I want to point out too, the Facebook page is first on here because this is such an underutilized tool, but it is such an amazing community of aesthetics tips, creative ideas, so much more. Honestly, if I was still managing, I would probably make this mandatory if I could for my team. It's essentially your 411 and your 911 for all things aesthetics. There's also 2 reference guides for leads now. There's the Lead Aesthetics Coaching Toolkit, which I'm sure every single one of my managers on here recognizes because I think I talk about it every single field visit. And we are really excited to talk about the esthetician training manual too, because Lisa Rossman just put out a brand spanking new one. So it is updated as of a couple of days ago and ready to use to coach your estheticians.
Which is fantastic. And I support Bethany 100% on the Facebook page for the estheticians. I'm joined on there. And there's some great conversation on there. Sometimes I'm like, man, I'm actually kind of jealous I'm not doing facials. Look how exciting this is. So definitely get your team on there if they're not already. Kind of stemming off the Lead Aesthetics Coaching Toolkit, this is really your roadmap for what tools to use as you create these leader positions. The evaluations are more than just a way to report numbers. You're creating an action plan section for a way to hold yourself and the lead LE accountable.
Yes.
And this is where other tools like the exchange webinars, the Hand and Stone Elite education plan, and the sales huddle game kind of meet together to come up with that plan.
Right. And we could spend all day going into how to use each of these, but we don't have quite that much time. So we just wanted to tell you too that your ops manager is one of the best people that you can reach out to share best practices for how other spas use some of these tools and help you determine what will be the best for your team. Each member is motivated differently, and it's about assessing what each team member responds to. Something that didn't work a year ago with a different team may very well work now. So remember, your success is driven by the people on your team.
Agreed. And so many people have split this leadership role into 2 pieces. Someone who trains on protocol and someone who really trains and does ongoing coaching and development. So sometimes this is 2 different people. You can break that training and motivating role in 2. Sometimes you don't always find it in one person, and that's okay.
Yes. And Melissa, I am so glad you said that because it is so important to remember. And hey, sometimes it's actually better.
Agreed.
Okay, so we would love to introduce our very first guest speaker. He is the regional manager for the Chesterfield and Short Pump location. And she has a lot of experience with working with different scenarios as far as their leads. One location doesn't have a lead, one does. So She's got some great best practices, and we would like to welcome Jess to the webinar.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. All right, so at your location, I know you don't have a lead esthetician in Short Pump, and then Chesterfield y'all do. So for Short Pump in particular, how do yourself and the manager kind of fill this position and speak confidently to the aesthetics team despite not being estheticians yourselves?
So yeah, we've had a lot of trouble with this in the past because one thing that's really important that we've tried to always recognize is the level of education that all the estheticians have. Not being estheticians ourselves, sometimes when we're trying to relay, especially protocol and new product information, they're not as likely to trust our information, relaying of that information. So we worked really hard. My manager, Kate, and I both are trying to stay up to date with everything that's pushed out every day, weekly. And we use each person on our team in a different way to help relay the information. So a lot of times when someone goes to a training or there's someone that, is able to visit the IDI in Vienna for Dermalogica, we have them help us relay that information to the full team. We also provide paid training, and we pay for all of our meetings to ensure that everyone does show up and be on board in the conversation that's happening rather than us just kind of feeding them the information.
That's fantastic. I love that you're using each member of your team to help communicate that. That's really important, and it really helps to build them together. And I know y'all have been working very hard on that. So good work.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice because each person has a different strength, which is why it's been difficult for us to really choose one person to lead the entire team. So it's just worked better to recognize each person for what they're good at.
And Jess, kind of stemming off of that, I think it's fantastic that you can admit, like, I am not an expert in this area, and you communicate that, and you don't try to be that person. And I think that's really important. I definitely was in that same position when I was in the spa myself. And you mentioned a lot of the different resources. What would you say are your favorite resources you use for coaching your team?
So we do forward our team the Aesthetics Weekly Directive. So every Tuesday they're forwarded the directive, and we kind of try and catch up with them in person about what is listed on there. We also use Slack, which I know a lot of teams use Slack as a communication for their entire team, but we have a private group for just estheticians. So when things are posted in the Facebook page, we can discuss it as a group, and it's a way to talk to everyone that has all different schedules in one place. Other than that, Kate has created a really great program of a binder that tracks all of our estheticians' growth towards the different elite levels with Dermalogica and Clarity, and then the Hand and Stone Expert. And so that's been really nice, where people are checking in to make sure if there are classes coming up, they can attend them and they're on board with everything.
Oh, I love the Elite Binder. That's fantastic. It's a great way to hold them accountable too, because I know that can kind of fall between the cracks sometimes with everything you're doing in a spa.
Yes, definitely.
Love it. So is your plan to interview specifically for a lead outside of the system, or are y'all going to keep keeping an eye out for potential talent from within your team?
Right now, we've been seeing pretty positive growth with the way that we've been proceeding. So it's funny because I have the two different spas to play off of one another, where Chesterfield does have the lead, and they're also seeing great success with that model. But for Short Pump, it's just worked out not having that position specifically. But more so, we've been leaning towards finding someone as a director position to work above both spas, similar to what I do for the managers, where they would kind of check in with all of the estheticians together. Then that would be someone we would look mostly outside of the spa for, but we're always watching at the current employees that we have to promote growth within the company.
Awesome. I love that y'all are not boxing yourself in. That's really important, and you're looking for what's going to fit with the talent on your team instead of kind of restricting yourself. Good work.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us and speaking a little bit to y'all's out-of-the-box approaches with your aesthetics team. I know I speak for all the managers listening when we thank you for your best practices. It's always exciting to hear.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jess. All right, so now we're going to dive into our front desk leaders. So as we mentioned earlier, the databases of resources is constantly growing and the coaching tools are endless for each of these departments. So a little reminder here of all of the great resources we have to set our front desk leaders up for success. For example, the Sales Huddle training game and our LMS webinars and portal games are great interactive ways to coach your spa associates beyond role playing. They can do these in their downtime, at home, maybe a contest that you put in place, but these are really great resources to get out of the box of just role play.
Yes, and I love the flip book and the workshop slides too. So often when I go into a spa and ask where the flip book is, it's just sitting back in a corner and getting a little dusty. And we use that for role playing and training too when I go on a field visit. So it's a really quick and easy reference. And if a spa associate is new, for example, and needs to figure out how to describe hot stones, rather than trying to pull out a big binder or go to the Hand and Stone website to find that description, they can just flip through the flip book real quick and it's right there on one of those last pages.
Right, and I think most will kind of try to go to that training manual, but let's be honest, they're not going to locate that manual on a phone call and try to find the hot stone description. So we need to make their job easy and kind of reevaluate some of these tools we have and make sure they're not getting dusty.
True statement. Most leaders at the front desk aren't paid much more than they were as an SA, and the harder you allow their job to be, the less they're going to get accomplished and the faster they're going to get frustrated. Empower them to use these tools to coach and have fun and make it as easy as possible.
And still the same kind of concept here applies. Don't be afraid to break down your leadership at the front between several leaders. Everyone has a different skill set, and creating these positions to fit your talent is how you're going to set them up for success. There may be someone that's great with membership sales, but there's someone fantastic with customer service. You might have a little millennium master on your hands, and that might not all happen in one person, and that's completely okay, guys.
Yes, and our next guest speaker, Melissa's going to introduce, speaks really, really well to that.
Alrighty, so we welcome Rihanna, the regional manager for Brookfield, Connecticut and Poughkeepsie, New York. They have a really neat structure where they've kind of made these mini experts that we were just talking about and kind of go outside of the box, and it's worked fantastic for them. So welcome, Rihanna. Do we have you on the line?
Hello, how are you, ladies?
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Of course. So, as I mentioned, you have a different structure where you don't necessarily have a assistant manager per se or lead spa associate. Rather than you have employed many spa associates to take on the lead of a specific area of the business. How did you determine you needed to split these responsibilities in your spas?
Yeah, so this was, it was quite a process for us. Our whole evolution began when myself and the Poughkeepsie assistant manager at the time have reflected on our previous 2 years, and we celebrated the success we had and our awesome growth, but we found that we had become a jack of all trades and a master of none. While we focused on the daily micro tasks, the bigger picture was not always in focus. So the less crucial things were starting to kind of fall through the cracks. So our positions also overlapped quite a bit in responsibilities because we didn't have any specific process in place at that time. So we initially thought that bringing on a second assistant manager would be the answer for us. So we began interviewing for the position, but quickly we found that hiring into a management position from the outside was sometimes easier said than done. So we began noticing some of the spa associates were showing some managerial qualities and stepping up to take on additional responsibilities. And we made the decision to continue to build on those qualities and help them grow.
I love that you started off in one direction and were not afraid to change it up partway through with the assistant manager, second assistant manager, and switching to several spa associates. That's fantastic. It's good that you weren't afraid to change your plan partway through.
Yeah, that was some trial and error on our part, but we eventually got where we were supposed to go.
And I think it's
hear ya.
volume. The jack of all trades and master of none. I think everyone on this line can probably relate to that in some extent. That we end up getting into that position, and I think that's awesome that you realized it and acted upon it.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
So what, Rihanna, what positions have you implemented instead of bringing on that second assistant manager?
So before we created any positions, we really took the time to look inward at our staff and tried to identify what their strengths and passions were. We then tailored the roles to fit the needs of the spa with the responsibilities we could clearly define. For example, marketing was one of them. After hiring outside companies for our marketing and really not being pleased with the results, we wanted someone that could make our marketing feel local and specific to our locations. We had an employee who was always, the first to help decorate the spa. She was helping me with the social media posts and then started expressing interest in taking over our accounts. Her position has actually since evolved to include most marketing decisions, social media platforms, all of our email marketing, offsite events, in-spa promotions, all of our charities. She really does a lot with all of that now. We've also implemented a spa associate trainer for both of our locations. She was actually a spa associate that was with the Poughkeepsie location literally from opening in day one. And she knows the operations of the spa and was, like you said, the millennium professional. She actually struggled with her conversion rates herself, but exhibited leadership qualities, professionalism, and an amazing customer service that we wanted passed on to our new staff. She's actually flourished into position, increased her conversion rates, just with the confidence she has and the accountability she feels now, and has onboarded an entire new desk staff in our Brookfield location. And it's really the best the spa has ever seen in our history there, as well as added on many new hires in Poughkeepsie who have also exhibited her qualities themselves.
Oh, that's
yeah, she's been doing awesome, and so she's not allowed to go anywhere anytime soon. And then we have our employee scheduling and driving sales we've delegated to a sales manager and a lead spa associate. And we've recently implemented an inventory coordinator position in both spas. And they handle inventory control, loss prevention, supply ordering. And then one of our newest ones too is we just had one of our lead massage therapists begin taking over the recruiting position for the spas as well. So then having these crucial areas of the business in the hands of our, what we call mini experts, it's allowed the assistant manager in Poughkeepsie and the manager in Brookfield to retain the membership management piece of the business. And they handle everything having to do with membership accounts, all the way through overcoming terminations. So with this whole new structure that we've had, we found that our productivity has increased and we're able to work as a team towards our greater goals.
This is... Go ahead, Melissa. We're both jumping to bits how awesome this is.
Yeah, it's
Thank
truly
you.
fantastic. You guys really have perfected this, and your operations manager, Brooke, has always raved about your guys' approach and how well it truly does work in the spa, and the flow has just really evolved. So that's fantastic. I think a lot of managers on the line here really should be taking some good notes right now about many experts, because we can have some really talented people on the team that are just doing the wrong things. They might be in a position that's not a good fit for them, but they have fantastic qualities that we could use elsewhere to grow the business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not an answer for everyone, but it absolutely works for us here.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, and I love
Thank
your
you for
point.
having me.
I just wanted to congratulate you on one more thing real quick. I love your point that it helps with employee retention too, because I think that's really important. And sometimes we wonder why we're losing people, but employees, they want room to grow. So taking the time to clearly define these and help them grow in their position is, I think that's great.
Yeah, we've seen so many people increase their conversion numbers and everything since we've started this new process. So it's definitely worked for us.
Ah, love it. Thank you. Like Melissa was saying, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing some of your best practices.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Rihanna.
Bye.
Alrighty, so we're going to transition to the massage therapist side. And, I think our initial reaction here with massage therapists is we kind of let them do their thing because we may think there's not as much to coach them on. They don't have as many benchmarks as maybe our estheticians or our spa associates to do. But we still have a ton of coaching and development we can do for them outside of those black and white numbers.
Right. And your lead massage therapist should be able to help with some of those things like addressing poor SMG reviews, coaching therapists on new services and products, setting expectations for clients on how often they should come in, continuing coaching on ethics, all that good stuff.
Right, and kind of what Rihanna was speaking about as well, too. She mentioned recruiting. Your lead can absolutely help with this, and I think this is one of the best scenarios. They have a unique perspective that will make communication with potential candidates easier. They really speak their language, and I'm using my air quotes around language right now. They can attend schools and recruiting events with you. They're likely to know the massage community a little bit better. And some may even choose to bonus them on this segment on recruiting and hiring.
Right. And Melissa, to your point, too, usually issues with the back of house occur due to a misunderstanding. And your lead therapist your massage leader can act as your liaison and explain what you're trying to say to the rest of the team. This person's your partner in this.
Absolutely.
So the Massage Therapist Facebook page is another fantastic one out there that is highly underutilized. Encourage your team and yourself, if you haven't yet, to join this community of Hand and Stone massage therapists. There's as much to be gained here for them as for the estheticians on their page. So be sure your leader is on this page and that they're on the quarterly lead webinars too. It's only once a quarter. That way they stay aware of any changes or exciting new services.
And stemming, what Bethany just said, if you can, as a manager, be on the MT and the LE page, and I highly suggest that. Like I said, you can learn so much from that, in addition to, our manager's Facebook page. I also really like the CEU earning opportunities chart. It really breaks down how they can earn free CEUs for working with Hand and Stone, and I think this is another one that we may not put out as much as we should. It's great for new hires and for your current staff.
Ooh, great point. I'm glad you mentioned that one too. And we could talk about these all day, but again, who better to speak to it than one of our guest speakers? So our guest speaker for this section, her name is Sarah. She's a regional manager for several locations in Washington and Oregon. And she actually started off as a massage therapist herself. So we would love to introduce her to the line to speak to some of her practices. Sarah, do we have you?
I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. So you are currently a regional manager for 9 locations, and before that you were a massage therapist. Can you tell us a little bit about how you pulled from your experience as a therapist to manage this department in all 9 spas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that actually the biggest tool that I learned from being a massage therapist was to practice good listening skills and consultation skills. So it's imperative for massage therapists and estheticians to have strong listening skills with their clients to achieve the intended result with their treatment. But it's the same thing for being a lead or a manager. You have to be able to listen to what your staff are wanting to achieve by having this job.
Agreed.
And just by listening to them, you're going to have better staff happiness and retention.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Also, I think that the experience I had by being a massage therapist gave me the insight I needed to find out the why in the behavior that employees were demonstrating. So if, for example, somebody's running late and the lead massage therapist doesn't know how to coach them on it, I'll spend time working with the lead massage therapist in figuring out why that therapist is always running late, and just digging a little bit deeper
Awesome.
and trying to figure out why rather than just dismissing. And then finally, I also think that being a massage therapist gave me the tools I really needed to understand recognizing the limits of practitioners in a row, in a day, and when they're maxed out, when they need to take breaks to prevent injury. And it taught me the importance of praise and recognition. Not every client lets a practitioner know exactly how happy they are at the end of the service. So it just instilled that value in me that I really need to relay that to the massage therapist. And as much as we can get our leads to praise and recognize the massage therapist, better the team is going to be.
That insight is invaluable, and I love the fact that you pointed out finding out the why behind what's happening as far as employees' behavior, because too often we jump to just disciplining for it, and that's not always the right way. And I love that you take the time to listen and figure that out. That's a really good point.
Yes, massage therapists are definitely.
And the praise part, I think, is so huge. That's some piece that sometimes we forget, and I think it's hard for us to figure out how exactly massage therapists want to communicate. But I do think you have a great point there that they do just want to have that praise and recognition that they did well. So how would you describe your management style kind of in a nutshell, Sarah?
Yeah, I think overall I'm a mover and a shaker, office dweller.
Oh, Sarah, I think you're fading out in the background. Do we still have you?
Yeah, are you here?
Yep, we heard a mover and a shaker.
Okay, so office dwelling is not an option.
Oh, come back.
Come back to us, Sarah. Sarah, don't go.
I don't know.
Okay. Sarah, jump in if we get you back. But what you were sharing with us a little bit last week that we'll share with Sarah until we can get her back on is that she was sharing with us office dwelling is really not an option for a manager or a lead, right? And Melissa, she was telling us too, you have to ask staff what they're doing, what you can do for them. Taking the time to do the little things. I think she was mentioning like flipping tables and just quick check-ins throughout the day. Pulling resources when she doesn't know the answer was a really big tip that we pulled from our conversation with her that we thought was really important. And I love that she was.
Okay. Are you guys there?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
That's okay. You are such a better person to share your answers. So tell us, you are a mover and a shaker, and office dwelling is not an option.
Yeah, well, a lot of times if morale is low in spas, I go in and I ask the staff and doing little check-ins, and sometimes that piece is missing. So you just have to get face-to-face interaction every day with your staff.
Agreed. We love your points, and thank you so much for sharing these with us today and for taking the time to hop on for the webinar. I know your insight, especially being a massage therapist yourself, is invaluable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so drum roll, please. The piece that everybody has been waiting for. What to do when you do not have a leader in your department. All right, so actually, Melissa, we could jump into all these tools again, but Melissa, you were sharing a little bit about some of your experience as a manager with me the other day when we were getting ready for this, and you had some really good tips. Could you share your story with us very quickly about how you kind of had to set yourself up for success?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started in the spa about 4 years ago, We had a fantastic lead massage therapist, really knew his stuff, great trainer, but by no means was he a cheerleader. So I quickly saw I had to be that role for him, and I needed to be able to pump the staff up and maybe do a quick contest or bring lunch in or, kind of shoot out those compliments. He wasn't going to be that person, but by all means, if I needed him to retrain on hot stone or draping, he was the perfect go-to. So I quickly saw what capabilities he did have and which ones he didn't. And then on the aesthetic side, I didn't have a trainer at all in the beginning. And this is where I kind of empowered myself to really learn the role. I went through all the resources we had at the time, the manuals, the different resources, and tried to learn that role the best I could so that I could be that person for them while we tried to find somebody. So I think it's important just to know that really to kind of get creative here and set yourself up for success and know what resources are out there. And you might not always know the answer, but you know where you can find it.
Those are really, really great points. And to your point about using all your resources, we've got some of them listed on here so that you can educate yourself on what each department can do. But again, one of the best ones you can use is reaching out to your ops manager. Most of them have done this before, and the ones that haven't are so educated backwards and forwards on everything Hand and Stone, as well as best practices from other spas. We can help answer questions, share what other spas have been doing, tips and tricks, all that good stuff. So don't forget, you got all different kinds of tools available. And we have somebody perfect to tell you about that.
So we'd love to welcome Norma. She's a regional manager for Davie, Pembroke Pines, and Fort Lauderdale in Florida. Norma started out as a manager at their first location in Pines and kind of worked her way up to oversee these 3 fabulous locations. And she's had her fair share of fantastic leads, not the best fit leads and no leads. And so she's really been able to kind of work through each of those situations. So we'd love to welcome Norma. Do we have you on? Miss Norma. See here. I think we just unmuted you, Norma. Do we have you on the line?
All right, so what we'll do is, while we're waiting for Miss Norma to join us, we will go ahead and go through some of her story that she was sharing with us ahead of time. So she, like Melissa was saying, Norma's had great leads. She's been without leads before, up and down and left and right. So what we're going to do is find out some of the things that she takes on herself when she doesn't have a lead and kind of some of the things that just have to wait. So bear with us just a moment while we go ahead and try to dial her in very quickly. While we're waiting, I just wanted to acknowledge that we see some of the questions we've been getting in throughout the webinar, and we'll take a second to touch on some of these as we get to the end. So never fear.
All right, give us 1 second. We're dialing Norma in. Hold tight. Norma's coming. Don't worry. Couple questions that were coming through that I'll answer really quickly while we wait for Norma. Someone asked about what the workshop slides are. So we host about 3 workshops a year in the different regions, and then we share the workshop slides after each of those in-person training sessions. You typically will find them in your operations email that Monday after. So good question. Let's see. Do we have Norma? I heard something. Okay, another question that came through. How do you deal with like last minute call outs and illnesses? That's definitely something on a spa level that you'll have to work out. It kind of just depends on each of, from spa to spa. It's definitely best to talk to your owner about how they want to handle that, or reach out to your individual office manager, and we definitely can kind of tag team that. Someone asked to repeat a certain quote. We said so many, I'm not sure which one. Let's see here.
But don't worry, we'll send all these slides out and some of these quotes, so you will get them.
This is recorded. Someone did ask that. Always recorded. We upload it by the end of the day, and then we also put it in next week's update, so you'll definitely have that. Bethany, any luck with dialing Norma in here?
Yep, I'm about to merge her in right now.
Perfect.
All right, Norma, do we have you?
Miss Norma.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I don't think Miss Norma's phone's working very well today.
No, we'll blame it on Hurricane Florence.
It's always a hurricane's fault in Florida.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're so sorry we were not able to get Miss Norma in, but we'll go ahead and go through some of the story that she wanted to share. Melissa, I know you've worked very closely with Norma, so you're probably the best person to share some of her answers. So tell us a little bit about what Norma has done as far as picking and choosing what can wait when you don't have a lead, what you have to put on your plate, what you got to stick to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of from Norma's words, she said it, it's very difficult to say that there's anything that can wait when we don't have a lead in place. Most responsibilities, if not all, definitely have to be done. But I think it's a matter of what gets skipped more, but more how often do they get done. So she said, when I have a lead in place, inventory may get done twice a month. Evaluations, weekly highlight emails, but in the absence of a lead, it becomes imperative to prioritize. So some of these things may have to be tailored a bit.
Oh, I like that. It's not a matter of what gets skipped, but how often it's done and just tailoring the frequency. That's good. And I think it's important too, because all this stuff does have a place. So when Norma has a lead, do you know how she works to create a partnership approach with them?
Yeah, she is very big about communication and understanding. She was an MT as well at one point, and she really communicates with each other, with all the different roles in the spa, and it's key to have a successful relationship. It's a partnership, and we need to be on the same page so that the staff doesn't play what she would say, like mom said or dad said. I think we all can kind of relate to that. We have to communicate daily via email, a few minutes of a one-on-one. As a manager, it's important to know not just your strengths and weaknesses, but theirs too. She said, hopefully they're not the same. And I think that really speaks to hiring and developing people with things you don't have or things that aren't your strong suits so that you kind of round it out. That way you can create an action plan that will work for both of you and the spa. We spend more time with our coworkers than we do sometimes even with our own families and friends. She said, for example, right now her spa managers and her can finish each other's sentences. That's how close they are. It makes you a little scary.
I love it. So Norma was the manager that emailed us with this huge quote: "Desperate times do not call for desperate measures in the hand and stone world." So why is this a good caution to others?
So she stated, we have promoted in desperation, knowingly that the person was not ready for extra responsibilities. We have hired candidates that were not right for the part just to put a warm body in the seat, and it has ended up with negative results and end up costing more. And she can honestly say in her 10 years in the spa world, I've learned to follow my gut. If it doesn't feel right, I dig a little bit deeper, and most of the time my gut feeling is correct. And I think that is so true, and we all have that feeling, and sometimes we may not listen to it, but it's imperative that we do.
Agreed. Oh my gosh. And I love the point about listening to your gut, because that is so, so, so important. And I can't tell you, at least when I was managing, how many times I did not, and I should have. So thank you. We know we don't have you, Norma, but thank you so much for those points and those best practices. This was all really, really good. And we're happy you shared your story with us so we could share it for you.
You're in spirit with us, Norma. You're here.
All right. So we took the time to go through some of the answers to the questions that y'all were shooting in. And I believe we covered most of them. But let's just take a look and scroll through very quickly just to make sure we didn't miss anything. Okay. I think, Melissa, that you covered most of the questions while we were working on getting Miss Norma in. All right, so as usual, we will, of course, share all of the tips and tricks in the next weekly update from all of our guest speakers. And we will, of course, post all of the slides to the Tortle, the learning management system, as well as the link to the recorded webinar. We have, of course, the promotional calendar just to share as a reminder to all of the managers for some of the promotions coming up. So you can work with your leaders in each department to prepare the team for them. Like September, we've got the Glow and Go. We have we just had the Labor Day staycation. We've got the pumpkin facial for October and breast cancer awareness. So work with your leaders to get the team, whoever they may be in whatever capacity they may be, to get the team ready for them.
Okay, and mark your calendars. Our next episode will be on Tuesday, October 16th, 11:15 a.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be tackling probably our biggest quarter of the year, really preparing for Q4. I don't know about you, but the Q4 just makes me very excited. We have our 2 major gift card holidays, our service volume increases, and kind of everything in between. So we're really going to tackle some best practices here for you guys. So we can't wait to talk to you then.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us. A special, special thank you to all of our guest speakers and their stories. Jess, Rihanna, Sarah, and Norma, we really appreciate you sharing your tips and tricks. And we will talk to y'all in October.
Bye, guys.